welcome to the 23rd century, because every year feels like a century this millennium. This is my first news-related YouTube video this year. I'm going to talk about American pride and about Republicans, about how the media and Democrats should respond to Republicans, and about Merrick, Garland, and about artists and their role in the world today, and finally about a few celebrities who get on my nerves. I believe that American pride is America's greatest weakness. I live in Toronto, and here in Canada, I'll speak for myself. I don't mind if people make fun of Canadians. I make fun of them myself. I'm the first to say we have no culture, we're a silly country, nobody takes us seriously. It's not a big deal to admit that, whatever, our country's silly. On the other hand, in the United States, for example, I was watching The Young Turks one time, and that chick, Anna, she was talking about how, there's some country made like a theme park that was America-based, and it made them all look like rednecks and fools, and how she was annoyed and insulted by that. And I thought, yes, because Americans are just too proud. Like, I don't think there's a lot of other countries that would be too offended if you make fun of their silly customs. And what's the end result of a country where the citizens are always saying, we're the best country in the world, we're the best country of all time? Well, okay, so that means you're also the greatest people ever in the world, and your president would therefore be the best person in the world, and he would probably get a godlike status. So that partially explains the adoration for that moron Donald Trump. It would also explain why Donald Trump would let all that power get to his head, because he probably thought, hey, my IQ is like 100 and people are saying I'm the best guy in the world. Now add to that problem the fact that North America, Canada and United States in particular, don't really have strong cultures. We haven't really been around. We're baby countries. Everybody is from somewhere else. I'm fourth generation Italian, so what the hell am I, right? Nothing. What's American culture? At best I would say apple pie and guns. In fact, if you look at American history, what do they got? They got the Old West. I guess they got a couple. I don't know much about American history or even Canadian history, but it's a lot of guns, really, the whole history of the states. So among the people who are fourth generation American, guns are pretty much their culture. It's their pride. I should say that I'm no way I'm very pro-American. We all grew up watching Superman, Christopher Reeve. It's everybody's culture. I went to Germany one time, and they were bashing Americans and saying how much they hate them. And then I looked to my left on their bookshelf, and it's filled with South Park and Star Wars. So, come on. John Steinbeck once said that socialism never took root in America because the poor see themselves not as an exploited proletariat, but as temporarily embarrassed millionaires, which is a nice segue into the subject of Republicans. People often ask, why do hillbilly, redneck, low IQ, uneducated Republicans, what do they see in Donald Trump? Well, I think that Steinbeck quote is a good explanation. You see, they don't see Trump as somebody who looks down on them and thinks that they're pieces of crap. They think of themselves as temporarily inconvenienced millionaires. They think they're on the level of a multimillionaire like Trump. So that's a large part of their attraction to him. I think also it's a matter of the fact that they can relate to someone who's a moron. if they're morons. So they'll say like, hey, look, he's stupid as hell and he got rich. Then maybe there's hope for me. Bill Barr, if he gets disbarred, he should be renamed Bill Disbar or disbarred. And speaking of stupid people and getting elected and trying to get the stupid base, I would say the best bet is to play it off like it's a WWF or WWE thing where you're like, I'm the macho man. Donald Trump, I'm the macho man. What you gonna do when I go wild on you? And then you smash a chair on the ground. That's exactly how you and Trump wouldn't know what to do. One Republican named Tucker Carlson made a very good, he said a very wise thing, a very profound thing. He said, there's nothing wrong with asking questions, period. And it's a shame if he doesn't know how profound it is. I don't know if it was an accident, it probably was. There's nothing wrong with asking questions, period. In other words, I'm just asking questions, period. In other words, I'm not asking questions. I'm just pretending to ask questions because I'm going to put a period at the end. Like, I'm going to throw out all these questions that I'm not looking for any answers to. Because, period. That's the end of the story. I actually asked my mother, she's in Florida, and I asked her, I don't know, I haven't been following politics for long. Have Republicans always been this evil, or is it just recent? And she goes, no, they were never this bad. They used to be okay. I'm like, alright, I guess so. And the Republican strategy of just calling everybody a liar whenever they say anything is going to come back to haunt them because, well, if everybody's a liar, then you probably are too because you're part of the institution. I mean, what's to say that you're not lying? And I've become more aware that you know that you're listening to a Republican when you watch the news because the Republican will immediately ascribe anything at all, any bad thing, to Biden or Democrats, and that's the end of it. Everything and everything. So if you say to a Republican, I've got a tummy ache, the Republican will say, yeah, it's because of Biden. And if you say to a Republican, my dog, I lost my dog, the Republican will tell you, yeah, that's because of the Democrats. And if you like this at all, you have to subscribe, because otherwise I won't make videos. Because what's the point if nobody watches them? Republicans should be called republicists, because they're more acting more like publicists. And that's not really a joke, as it is just sensible. The Republican Party should change their name to the Real Housewives of Congress, or Dirty Filthy Liars, or Sex in the House. American government has become a sleazy TV show. I watched The Disaster from Toronto, and I know I'm a little bit safe, but their hairspray will eventually hit me. But it is entertaining. I mean, Republicans are basically drag queens because they're all pretending. They're all dressed up. Republicans are also masochists. You would think that maybe like Donald Trump is a sadist, but no, I believe that he's a masochist. There is nothing Donald Trump wants more than to be punished and tortured. And he's furious that it's not happening. At the end of the day, every sadist, I believe, is it's just projected masochism. I mean, I'm sure you've met somebody where, like, the more awful you treat them, the more they respect you. And that's basically the Republican Party. The more crappy Trump treats them, the more they love him. And the more crappy you treat Trump, the more he loves you. So it's just like a hopeless kind of thing where the only choice is to, like, torture them. On the subject of fossil fuels, speaking of masochism, so they think that fossil fuels are important and, like, it's just reality. Okay, and they're mad about the idea of getting rid of fossil fuels. Well, I'm sure there were back 100 years ago, 100 years ago, there were a lot of angry elderly Republicans who were furious, and they were blacksmiths, and they were furious when the horse and buggy was replaced by the automobile because it put them out of business, right? They had all this money invested in horseshoes. But, I'm sorry, it's just technology. It's just the way it works. It's progress. Still on the subject of Republicans, anti-vaxxers. Okay, so the thing about anti-vaxxers is that you can't accept some science and then reject other science as though you can pick and choose. If you think vaccines don't work, then you're the same as a flat earther, and you don't believe gravity is real. So you should be locked up for your own protection, lest you decide one day to jump off a building. Saying science works only when you like it is like saying truth only exists when you agree with it. They have no problem with science when it gives them microwaves or cell phones or TV shows or video games. And the funniest thing is that it's like these idiots. You give an idiot a computer, and the idiot uses the computer to try to figure out to try to prove and find facts that prove that computers aren't real. Speaking of Republicans, George Santos. Okay, everybody, the average person has to work for like a very little amount of money. I've had to work for minimum wage before, and I've actually had to deduce that, I'm actually getting like $2 for every 5 minutes of grueling work. And then you look over and you see some liar like George Santos who's making far more money and doing no work. And that's why it's a danger. It's a danger to everybody. Because what happens when when your whole country stops believing that hard work pays off? Speaking of Republican George Santos, for me his real name will always be Kitara Ravashi, the beautiful drag queen. Right now he's dressed up as a congressman, so he's just doing the same thing that he did when he was a Kitara. The thing about people like him that needs to be remembered, just like Donald Trump, they're very silly. They're very silly people, and they're hilarious. It's fun to make fun of them, how stupid they are, how ridiculous they are. They're the clown. They're always the clown, right? But they're very funny until they have power. When they get power, it's not very funny because they're the most dangerous monsters you've ever. I've met harmless clowns in my life, and when I saw them get the faintest amount of power, they turned into like monsters, and that's always what happens. In regards to the media and the Democrats and the way they respond to Republican morons, I don't think Trump's comments or the comments of the Clown Caucus should be elevated or repeated by any journalist or Democrat. Unless you're having fun. I mean, they're fun, if you want to make fun of them, that's kind of funny, but even then, you got to be careful. You got to be, you don't want to elevate moronic conversation any more than you'd want to, like, make fun of somebody at a funeral or a wedding. I question whether the House Democrats should even respond to Marjorie Laserbeam or Matt Gaetz when they propose their clown ideas. Just vote no and wait them out. When they ousted Omar, AOC probably should not have delivered her passionate speech because Fox News probably loved it. What you do is you ignore them, and then it forces them to seek drama elsewhere, and it'll end up being between each other. Marjorie and Gaetz will end up attacking each other for their drama. From what I hear, these MAGA nuts have no power in the House because they don't have the President or the Senate, so they can't do anything anyways. All they can do is waste time. So let them waste time for 2 years. You have no choice. If they want to go on about Ashley Babbitt, it's more of the same. We heard it before. We vote no. Have a nice day, Marjorie. Same with Boebert saying that she loves guns. I mean, yeah, we know you love to shoot people. You think everybody in a perfect world, everybody would shoot each other, and little children should shoot each other. Now on to Merrick Garland, who really annoys me maybe more than anybody else on the planet. First off, he reminds me of a deer in the headlights. You know, I'm sorry if he inherited a mess. I'm sorry if he thought he was inheriting a fully functioning system. I'm sorry if he was under the delusion that the previous administration was not insane. But he shouldn't have accepted the job if he didn't think he was up for it. You know, if you offered me the job of being a brain surgeon, I'd tell you I'm not qualified. I'm no expert in politics or law, but his job is to make it happen. That's what every job is. I'm not an expert in plumbing, but if I hire a plumber to fix my toilet, his job is to make it happen, not to come back and say, well, I don't have all the parts, and and I got to go do this first. And I don't want to hear the whole story. Just do it. Just get it done, or I'll do it myself. And I'm so sick of his little announcements, his little monthly announcements about how, well, we're proud to announce that we're prosecuting chipmunks for stealing acorns. Sure, you can say Garland isn't doing nothing, but you also can't say he's doing something. It's been 2 years since January 6th, and at last time I checked, Garland is just dusting and sweeping and mopping when he should be renovating the place. Now, if somebody breaks into your house and starts raping your wife, are you going to go on Google and figure out what you're legally allowed to do to that person while he's raping your wife? Or are you going to just do what's necessary? Are you going to research whether you're allowed to use the baseball bat or whether, you have to just politely ask him to leave first? And, if you're a lawyer, even then, should your first instinct be to check out what the laws are? That's an extreme analogy, but is it though? Because what happened on January 6th is about as extreme, if not more extreme. It's not a time to be making sure you follow the law to a T and that you cross all your T's and dot all your I's. I'm sorry. It's like you got 2 minutes or else the bomb's will go off, and you're like, okay, well, first I'm going to take a shower, then I got to wash my hands, I'm going to put on some cologne, straighten my tie, then I'll what do you call it? Deactivate the bomb. A good time to bend the rules is when your opponent is breaking the rules. If you were playing a game of Monopoly with somebody who was cheating, would you just keep playing by the rules and finish the game with them? No, you either stop playing or you just grab the cards out of his hand and say, okay, I'll break the rules too, I win. Since there's no rules. I blame all of this now on Garland, and it is criminal. His non-action, his inaction is criminal as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you that should be criminal. And as much as I adore Joe Biden, he's not a wartime president, and this is a wartime for the United States. And he was a nice transitionary president, but right now we need somebody who's willing to bend the rules. And whoever the president is, including Joe Biden, they should fire Merrick Garland and hire somebody who, has a pair. And the most shameful thing about Merrick Garland is that, as he said, his family fled Germany to escape a dictator, only so that he could come here and hide from a new dictator. Finally, I'm going to talk about musicians, artists, and their role in society, their responsibilities. Because recently it's been in the news that Ticketmaster is ripping off fans. And some musician from some band came on and said, Ticketmaster always rips me off and we have no options, and we only get a penny for every dollar they make. And I'm like, no duh, you must be young. Boo-hoo for you. I've got news for you, Mr. Born Yesterday. For every dollar Taylor Swift makes, her production company makes $100. And for every $100 the production company makes, there's a bigger company that makes $1,000. So if Beyonce is worth $1 billion, that means she made a company, an evil corporation. She made that corporation $1 trillion. And it doesn't matter to her, or most artists, fake artists, because they just want to be world famous and they want to be worshipped by everybody. So who cares, right? And as long as she has her $100 million, if no artists were willing to sell out to Ticketmaster and production companies, then those entities would not exist. But because they exist, it makes it nearly impossible for an artist who doesn't want to sell out to get anywhere. They're not going to get their song on the radio. And then they'll always say, well, how else am I supposed to make money? I had to sell out. Well, no, you became an artist precisely so that you wouldn't sell out. And you didn't do it. You did it knowing you were supposed to be broke. So they're all scabs. And when you sell your song to a McDonald's commercial or Pepsi, like Jack White did, well, you're helping them. You're helping another business. And guess what? If no artists were willing to write music or sell their music to McDonald's, McDonald's would have much less appealing commercials. And, it would help small restaurants compete. Another example is, imagine if you were a comedian and you write little skits, you do your stand-up comedy, maybe you even want to make a comedy TV show that you write yourself. Well, guess what? You've got to compete with the Simpsons, who has a staff of 20 comedy writers who are going to write 20 times more jokes than you. And you're not going to get, you'll never. That's why they're scabs. They're selling you out, and they're selling the craft out. It works the same with all arts. Fiction, writing fiction, painting, visual arts, and music. And then they all sell out together. Like, for example, a music video, such as like Toxic by Britney Spears. That's an interesting video because it's so well written, the song, because it's got 20 writers, 20 music sellouts writing the song. It's got 20 visual artists making the video stunning to look at. And it's even got like story writers who are telling the little story in the video. So way to go, guys. And we're living in a time where you don't even really need a company to produce you, right? You can make your own music at home on a computer that will be just as good quality if you put work into it. You can put it on YouTube, right? We've been able to eliminate the middleman entirely. So something like 20 years ago, I went to an after party for this band called Down with Webster, and they were very big at the time. And this after party was just filled with free booze and all these gorgeous women, and I'm like, this is incredible. This is amazing. What a great life. Wow. But then I spoke to a friend of mine who was in the industry, and he said, yeah, who do you think had to pay for everything at that party? And he goes, the band did. That all goes on the band's bill. And they probably got a contract for like, $100,000 between all 8 of them. And everything on that contract gets deducted while they tour, right? So, okay, we're going to give you $100,000 to go on tour and do all this. Okay, but we're going to charge you $10,000 for hotels. We're going to charge you $50,000 for, all the meals. We're going to charge you $50,000 for this, for that. As well, also, the producer is going to charge them for the first-class plane rides that he takes when he goes on vacation, right? They're going to make sure that by the time the tour is over, all of that $100,000 has been spent, and the band will get nothing. All these bands, like, that reach the level of, say, like Good Charlotte, or Blink-182. Blink-182 probably made some money. I'm not an expert. But unless you're Taylor Swift or Beyonce, you're basically not going to make much money at all. Okay, so that's all for now. I guess call this my 23rd century quarterly report. If I get enough views, I'll make another one. If you support gays, click like. If you respect blacks, comment. If you think women are people too, click the notification bell. And if you care about sick children, subscribe.